November this year. So these are the ones I have on my leg sting. Looks like Jeff might be having... Is Jeff there? Are you able to talk, sir?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just listening to your bee story.
Yeah, you know why they stung you, Joe? Because those bees like dice.
Because they're random.
It's random bullshit.
What did you do to these bees, man?
I mowed my grass, and it happened last time I mowed my grass too, but this is in a totally different spot. So I was super careful because I noticed they were burrowed in the ground in my backyard, like the very back of my backyard. And so I mowed my entire grass. I started there, didn't get stung. I had about 2 or 3 minutes left. I get stung once in the leg, and I was like, holy shit. And it was kind of getting dark, so I couldn't really see it. And I was like, God, I was just like, God damn it. And I kept on mowing it because I was like, I only got like 2 minutes left. I'm going to get this done. And then I get stung in the hand, like right in my fourth finger, which I don't know if you can tell, but like it's swollen pretty bad. It lost all the wrinkles in it because it's like huge.
You know that bee was going around going, someone's thinking about time of crisis. Ah, there he is.
There's the guy who shit on time of crisis.
That's right. That's right.
Oh boy. Well, guys, we already. Oh crap, man, we are already.
You're live.
We are already broadcasting, and I just said one of the George Carlin words.
Yes, you did.
I'll just have to edit it out.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be edited out. So yeah, it'll be edited out. But whoever, we do have a viewer. I don't know if it's one of you guys, but like somebody.
It's probably me.
Yeah, it's totally like, I feel like it's justified to be able to use at least some light profanity even in public when you get stung by a bee twice, or it must have been 2 seconds.
They have done that study that shows pain relief is better when you swear.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, usually I just shout out your name, Andy.
Yeah, I believe that.
At the top of my lungs. So let's see here. I'm going to click on this and hopefully it brings me there.
Where's Trent?
Trent is at Gen Con right now. He's
that's right. That's right.
They Might Be Giants, I think, was who he was going to see in concert or something like that.
He's at the concert.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a link here on Twitter. It actually should already be posted. If you guys wouldn't mind retweeting the link. It looks like we already got a like, but
tweeters.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it onto our Good Board Ugly Guild. And I think we could also, throw this onto the Longview Guild, right?
Sure.
Why not?
Yeah. Oh, Joe and Jeff, you'll appreciate what happened at my school yesterday. We have like a huge staff turnaround in the middle school, and one of them's a new colleague that replaced the old science teacher that worked with me. And she used to teach at the building where our superintendent was principal before he came as superintendent. And so he was announcing everybody's names, like, so here's the new people, da-da-da. And like the new person's phone went off and he's like, seriously, you forgot to turn off your phone? Who's calling you? Or who's sending you a message? She said, oh, it's blah, blah, blah from the other building. She's asked if you're started rambling yet and went over time. Which was hilarious because we were 15 minutes over time.
Nice.
Perfect timing.
Oh yeah, the first week of school and all the meetings and all of the trainings, and it's always a joy. It's always a joy.
This one was brutal today. It was brutal. Like we always have like this administrator skit, and like usually there's at least some takeaway there that's like kind of entertaining. And this year they just it was cringe, entirely cringe all the way through beginning to end. Like I couldn't keep my eyes on it. It was that bad. It was look away bad. It was like being in a strip club, look away. You can't.
Right. So it was like Trump's press conference the other day, right?
It could have been, yeah.
Or
and now, for episode 127, we have
every press conference. Oh, geez. No, ours today was, they called it Tech Boot Camp, and we had to sign up for all these tech things. And
Nice.
I'm just like, is there a form I can sign that says I'm not tech stupid? I'm not entirely sure that I didn't fall asleep in the last section.
Well, one of the problems I think with education in general is a lot of times now we're getting these really nice electronic tools, but they really don't train people on how to use it, or they give you like a 1-hour session and then they say, okay, have fun with that, and that's the last you ever hear of it. And like, well, okay, now I've got this tool. Nobody really knows what they're doing with it. They spent a lot of taxpayer money on it, but we don't really get any follow-up training, and so nobody really knows what they're doing. That's frustrating. It's like, rather than give me a new gadget, give some training on stuff that we already have, and let's use it better. Let's use it more efficiently and more broadly. I mean, it was we got the sort of the Promethean projectors, right? That turns your regular whiteboard into a sort of a touch screen.
Oh,
and really, really cool. Nobody told us anything about the fact that you can actually record. So I kind of figured out for myself that I can record. So I can do a demo of a math problem for the students and the parents and show it using the Promethean board and record it as a QuickTime and then post it to the web page. And then, if people are like, I don't understand how to do this, well, go look at the video. There it is. But no one bothered to tell us that was even possible. And it's like, if you're not stumbling around yourself, trying different things, it's like half the time you don't even know half the things that you can do with what you've been given. And that's always a little bit of a source of frustration because, what they're going to do is they're going to spend, more staff development time talking to us about standardized testing. It's like, I don't need to hear any more about that. Give me something actually useful. I can, anyway, I don't want to, I'll get off my soapbox.
I've lost the ability to be politically correct about that anymore.
Yeah.
The last year we were going over the Iowa test of basic skills results, and the principal looked at me. He's like, so can you explain why they did bad on these two problems? I'm like, because the test is crap.
Yep. Yeah. There's been many times when I've kind of said, I really want the people who made this test to come in and take it. Or I would like to take this test and take it to the state house and have all of the people there take the 5th grade test and see how many of them would fail it.
They did that once. There was some school board where the president took the senior level test they had. And when there was certain members of the board, they were like, well, why are they doing so bad? And he's like, I failed it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a mad world. So anyway, well, enough of all that. I think we're supposed to be talking about board games, right, guys?
No. On today's topic is just politics and religion with Geof Gambill.
Namaste, my friend.
And that's how we lost.
That's how we lost our one viewer.
Are they still there?
She's still there.
God bless him. All right.
Yeah, I said something in the chat.
Best episode ever.
It might. I'm not 100% sure. It might actually be considering me a viewer of my own podcast. I'm not sure, so it might just be me. Hold on, let me.
Oh God!
I really don't want to know. I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to be disappointed.
Am I still in it? I'm still in it. Okay. Well, we still have a viewer, so it's not counting me.
Well, it could be funny because, I don't know, I could end up with groupies or something. I basically got my wife interested in me by making fun of her religion.
Yeah.
Nice. It usually doesn't work well.
Well, it works when you're her religion, Andy.
Yeah, we're Unitarian Universalists. We're very good at poking fun at our own stuff.
There you go. Oh man, well, it's nice to have a chance to get to talk with you guys, and I'm happy to be on the show here, and appreciate the invite. And I know we are going to be trying to talk a little bit about the WBC tonight. As well as some reviews and some games that we've been playing and have been hitting the table. So yeah, I mean, whenever you guys are ready to go, let's.
Why don't you actually count us down and get us started, Jeff? Why don't you do? Because you know what, I bet our listeners, which tend to have a lot of overlap, believe it or not,
right?
I bet our listeners would love to hear Geof Gambill introduce an episode.
Maybe not. I don't know, but oh God, really? You want me to do the whole thing?
I got a compliment, Jeff. I got a compliment about your somebody as a communications major in college, like as a communication specialist, was like, I really respect Jeff's style, and I thought that was awesome, and that's one of the reasons I'm saying this. So you got a compliment, sir, and no compliment goes unpunished.
Fine. So, hello out there to everybody, and welcome to this episode of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, and also a sort of a sister broadcast for the Longview podcast. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the WBC, the World Board Gaming Championships, which is a convention that's held every year in Pennsylvania. This is the second year that it's been held in the Seven Springs area. There's a resort there that the convention moved to. It used to be held in Lancaster, was held there for many, many years, as many years as I've been going. And before that, I think it started off as like Avalon Con. It used to be in Maryland. It's got a very long tradition. And this is a convention that is very different from other conventions because one of the stated purposes of the convention is competition. This is a convention that is, basically about running events. There are tons of board game events. Some board games that are from back in the 70s and all the way up to Terraforming Mars, the most recent games. So there's a huge variety of games, and there's tournaments, and the winner receives like a plaque, and you receive laurels, which are kind of like points that you can accrue from year to year. And it's kind of just a fun, friendly competition. But then there's a whole nother part of it, which is open gaming, which a lot of people are not really aware of. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. And we're also going to talk about some games that have been hitting our table. So my name is Geof Gambill. I'm the former host of The Longview. Now I get to be a guest, which is awesome. And I'm going to let the other guys introduce themselves. So maybe we'll start off with TC.
Yes, my name is TC Reid. I am Jeff's replacement on the Longview podcast. He was gracious enough to hand over the reins. In terms of compliments, yes, Jeff, you have gotten a lot of compliments for introductions. However, I have gotten a lot of critiques for the first episode I did, because apparently it is Joe Wiggins, not Jim Wiggins.
Oh,
yes.
And I
yeah.
mispronounced
Yeah,
your last name, Joe. So yeah, I was at gaming last night, and I said, "What'd you think about the new Longview episode?" Oops.
I was waiting to see if you were going to call him Ender Wiggins.
Yep.
That one.
I have said many times in the past, I am Texan and I am bad with names. I thought I made this clear when I took over the podcast.
Not a problem. I am the exact same way. All that anybody has to listen to is me try to pronounce the name of a designer or an artist, and we're usually in trouble. So I feel your pain there. But I do want to say that I really enjoyed the intro to the inaugural sort of Longview episode. I really liked hearing the little clips that you kind of wove in there from later in the episode. During the introduction, you still had my awesome cheesy theme music. Love that. And it was really nice. I was very impressed. I talked to Joe a little bit about it and said that I was very impressed with what you guys pulled off on that first episode, and was very grateful for the amount of care that you all took to put it out, and grateful for the guest and all of the perspective that they brought as well. So thanks a lot for that, guys. So there's TC, my fellow name butcherer.
Except for TC, it's just Jim and Joe. He just can't. Get Jim and Joe.
I eventually went to Mr. Wiggins. I mean, I just screw it.
It was confusing because there's two Joes on that podcast, and so
right.
Trying to give an example, it'd have to be like first and last name.
Right, or just like Joe Dub.
Joe Dub.
kind of his hip hop name. What he's known as.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, DJ Joe Dub.
Anyway,
Andy, why don't you go introduce yourself first?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Dennison. That's basically it.
beautiful.
No. We need 18XX fanatic.
Oh,
It's a man who is in the process of adjusting to going back to school.
Yeah. No, I've been back to teaching, getting up at 5:30. So if I'm coherent at all tonight, it's probably because I fell asleep during tech training.
Nice. Got a quality
Andy.
power nap in.
Yeah.
Andy,
The
used
sad part is I've
hyperbole.
learned I have to stop drinking caffeine, and my wife's like, if you thought you fell asleep, you probably did. Could you go out quick now?
Nice. It's a narcoleptic science teacher.
You're supposed to be putting your students to sleep.
You always say it was an experiment, right?
Well, it didn't help that they also, for some reason, decided all the professional development should be done at the high school, which is not air conditioned.
Oh,
When the middle school is air conditioned and is literally 20 feet away.
that's heinous.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
oh.
Let me
why I
make
work
you
in a
come
laboratory.
in. Exactly. Let me make you. Well, your laboratory. That's like. Don't they keep those at like 61
I was
degrees?
gonna say.
No, I would be happy.
They keep you in a basement.
There you go. When
homework,
we
man.
did the reflection of the professional development, my only statement was no more professional development in the high school.
Was it an anonymous survey, or are you just past that?
No, I put it up there under me. I'm like, no, I'm going on record. No more.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I get you. Yeah, that's fair.
Ryan,
Well,
I think you're last, buddy.
that's right. Yep, I'm last and definitely the least at this moment because I appreciate you taking over hosting duties here for me tonight, Jeff. I, like Andy, just started going back teaching, and today was my first day. Came home, started mowing the grass, and anybody who listened to 2 episodes ago, I think it was, maybe it was even last episode, I got stung by a bee last time I mowed the grass. Well, tonight I double did it, and I got stung by 2 bees. Totally unrelated spot of my yard, but got stung by 2 bees. I've got, if you're hearing rustling on the track on the YouTube video, you can see on the YouTube video I've got a bag of mixed vegetables expired in 2015, and that's going to hopefully keep my 4th finger on my right hand from ballooning up any more than it is. But anyway, thank you all for your thoughts and kind
prayers. Yes,
yes,
prayers. I just want to know, that I'm sure that there was blame on both sides of that incident. Okay, I'm
And did I
sure
ever say my name?
that some of those bees
Yes,
were
yes.
quality bees. Those were quality bees.
I was definitely showing aggression towards them. Like,
Were
I'm
you?
going to go on record saying that I was showing aggression. I actually was driving specifically to displace those bees.
Were you?
Although they were already they were immigrant bees to your yard. They were displaced by wasps.
This
This
in
is
the-
true, yes. yes.
displaced by wasps. Oh,
Yep.
man. All right.
It's funny how building a wall doesn't work against bees. Anyway, we're not going to turn this in to an hour and a half of politics and religion with Geof Gambill. So we're going to go back here. Did I even say my name? I'm Joe Sallin. I'm normally the host of
You're
this
B-boy.
podcast. Yeah. By the end of this, my throat will probably be closed. So it was nice knowing you all. It's
Let's
been a
hear
good
it for
run. We made it to
anaphylaxis,
127. Yeah, anaphylactic shock. My wife says I need an EpiPen because each time I get so swollen from these things. But it's just a
Oh, my
large
goodness.
localized reaction. WebMD says it goes away in 3 to 6 days.
You're just getting stung the wrong place, I guess.
No, if I got stung in like the right place, I would have to go to the hospital. I am getting stung in the right place because I don't have to go to the hospital. I can actually record this. Tomorrow morning is when it's going to suck, man. I just got stung, so this stuff
Right.
is not yet swollen. Tomorrow morning, when I wake up and the blood rushes to my leg, I'm going to be like, ah!
I think
I
you
don't-
should totally post a picture of that because I think people would want to see that. They
The-
want to see
Watch me
pictures of Joe's anatomy swollen.
Is that
It
the
doesn't-
ugly part of the podcast?
It doesn't even look, the good, the board, and the ugly. I was going to say, the good, the board, and the long doesn't exactly have the same ring, does it?
No.
The good, the board, and the long view. All right.
Oh,
Well,
man, we're in trouble.
yeah. Already this far off the rails, Jeff. You definitely are now a guest host and abusing your privileges.
Ugly Longview? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. All right. Somebody start talking about something they've been playing recently.
Oh, sure. Well, I can.
What do you want to review?
I can shepherd people here. Well,
All right, go for it.
let's go ahead and let's start off with TC. Why don't you christen this, because I know that you've been very excited to talk about this game.
Oh, well, before I talk about the game I want to talk about, I have to mention a game. I haven't played enough of it to actually review it yet, but I'm having a tremendous amount of fun. I just want to mention that we've been playing Seafall, and we took the Blood Oath, which means we all signed a Blood Pact to play it through to the end. Upon loss of pieces to our favorite board game, there's a picture up on our Twitter. And I just want to say it's been incredibly fun because I am now a random event that can take people out, including myself. I have officially achieved a life goal in the game. So I am now a chaotic random event in the game. But to move on from that, which I know that
I don't know what any of that means, but it sounds like fun.
Oh, it was great. Anyway.
It sounds like TC is what it sounds like.
Yeah, it was definitely a TC moment. But anyway, me and my wife have been getting the plays of Washington's War in. And every time I go back to this game, I just love it more and more and more. It is one of the first card-driven games that was ever published. It was published previously as We the People. Mark Herman went back and redesigned it. And I guess we'd say streamline, but it definitely made the battle system a lot more easier to do and faster.
Andy loves streamlined.
Yeah. And it just, I just love it. It's great. It's more than just a war game. It's area control. You use your generals to control political control of the colonies. And once you get this thing going, you can play it in like 90 minutes. I mean,
nice.
The game I played with Carissa, it was so incredible because I had a card that was going to end the war like 5 rounds into it. I had Washington pinned in Rhode Island. I attacked. I cornered George Washington. I captured him. He was removed from the game. And I threw the card down and I ended it. And the British won. It was such a good feeling. But it is, man, just this game needs to be played more. More people need to play this thing. It is such a great game. I want to review it more later when I can get Carissa involved in it because she has such an interesting perspective on it, being the historical war gamer she is and how everything reflects what's going on, like the winter attrition, how hard it was to actually retain militia for the American, because the people of America were actually like leaving the militia to go tend to the land and stuff. And, how the British comes in at ports and have like a bonus for being in ports. And it's such a wonderful asymmetric game. Washington's War, fantastic game.
You get a long view on that one sometime.
Yes.
Yeah, probably. That would definitely be one that's worthy of it for sure. It's a game that's got a really good pedigree. It's been around for a while. I enjoyed it when I played at TC, but I didn't. I always kind of felt that the game was slightly skewed towards the Brits. The way they can kind of use the sea for movement and sort of pop up, really, really powerful. That there are things in the game that I really enjoyed, aspects of it that I thought in a game of its weight were really, really interesting. I seem to remember there's quartering rules in that for winter quarters, right?
Yes, the British will, if they're like, they have to be in a fortification zone north of the winter line or else they lose. Mm-hmm. If they're south of it, they don't have to worry about it. And all the American troops lose half. The generals lose half their troops, except Washington always keeps 5, just to bring home the fact that Washington was such a charismatic leader in the American Revolution. He was able to keep the troops together.
Yeah, it's definitely a game that's got a lot of merit to it. But there were a few things that I think there was also the activation cards for the different generals. That sometimes kind of frustrated me in the same way that playing some of the Commands and Colors games or Memoir 44, where it's like, oh boy, I got this great formation, I got all these troops over here, I'm ready to go, but I can't draw a right side card to save my life. And I think in Washington's War, you have to have your general card, don't you, in order to activate the general and the troops? Yeah.
In Washington's War, you have to have the number of the general to activate him. And once you activate him, he moves 4 spaces unless he's going through terrain, which takes 3 of the spaces.
Right.
But what we can do is you can actually, if you like sitting there and like, because the British, they have to have 2 or 3 generals, or you have to have a 2 or 3 card to do it. And if you're stuck with the hand of ones, you can actually like throw a card down and say, I'm just going to reserve this card and carry that one over to my next turn, and then play another 1 card, and that becomes a 2, and you can activate a general. That's how that you mitigate that a bit. But you only have 7 cards, so you're burning a turn to build up a card to activate, because the American generals are like 1s and 2s, moves them all over the board. The British generals are like 2s and 3s, and like Hal, who's like incredibly powerful with a 6 bonus if he rolls right. You have to have a 3 card to activate him to move, and you got to time everything just right in that thing to be able to pull it off.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks for reminding me about that, because I haven't played it in a while, and there were some, I knew there was something with the activation that I remember, for me at least, being a little bit frustrating. But again, there's a lot of people who would talk about the fact that they feel that's very thematic for the game, and it kind of represents historically the difficulty of moving troops, and you talk about some of the generals' reluctance to move, and things of that nature. So definitely one that's has stood the test of time. So I hope you guys do an episode about it.
No, I would love to. It's great. And it's asymmetric too. So like, if you feel like, because if you go with the Americans thinking the Americans usually cannot stand toe to toe with the British. It's really hard to. So you have to like, they use them to control your political control. When you put out political controls, the Americans, they can go anywhere on the board, where the British is the procedure where they have to put it out to be like next to one or in a port. So yeah, while the British are really good with military, the Americans can really set the pace of the game and how to put out political control.
Well, that sounds definitely cool. Have you played that one, Andrew?
Andy, you're on mute.
Oops, sorry. No, I haven't had a chance to play that one yet. I haven't done a lot of war games yet. That's something I've kind of been like dipping my toes in lately, out of the something different from the economic games. But I'll keep that one in mind, though.
See, Andy, the reason I think you like Washington's War is even if you go into battle and you completely get creamed in that game, battle-wise, the most you're ever going to lose is 3 troops. If you move in with 5, you're only going to lose 3, and you have to like figure out how you're going to retreat. So going into battle isn't like all or nothing as most war games are, because there's a whole secondary set to this game where you're maintaining political control, because the victory condition, I didn't mention that, is that the Americans have to control 7 colonies politically, the British have to control 6, and if both have 7 or 6, the British win by default. So if you can control the pace of the game and be like, I'm fighting, and distract someone in this battle, you're going to lose, and next turn just spread the board with political control, that's actually a very effective move in the game. And Jeff, there is in the 2nd edition, there's a strategy guide in there for like how to play each faction, which is really helpful. I know Carissa used that very effectively against me a few games ago.
Yeah, I'd have to check that out. That would be cool. Cool. Well, thanks for telling us about that one, because that's one that I haven't played in quite a few years, but I do definitely have some memories about it. That's for sure. So, Joe, what have you been playing?
Oh, for my review is actually quite an interesting topic, Jeff. I was going to review Spirit Island, and I'm actually happy to give that a little while before I review it, because even though I've already logged like 5 plays of it, and that doesn't count all the like unquantifiable time that I've spent salivating over the cards. But yeah, anyway, I'm happy to wait, because I'm going to be teaching it to my little brother. My brother is coming into town this weekend, Jeff.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's coming to town this weekend. And he's going to be here to play some games and stuff. He'll probably end up being my nurse, just in case this bee sting gets further out of hand. But he's
I see what you did there. Out of hand. I see what you did there.
Gosh. No, that was no. Okay. Anyway. You derailed me, man. What was I going to say?
I totally threw you. Totally.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I want to send a big congrats to him. He occasionally listens to episodes, and I hope he hears this. He just passed the 4th of the 4 modules in the CPA. So it was the only one that he had failed. But now, yes, at this point, he is totally done with everything except for like this ethics test. That's kind of a participation completion grade. So it's one of those where you just check all the boxes and say, I'm not going to do something unethical. But yeah, I'm really proud, really proud of that, and excited to have him come and learn Spirit Island so that I can give an opinion, maybe like a little bit of his opinion when I give my review, because I'd like to have at least a little bit of balance. I feel like I'm kind of going through the roof on this one. So anyway, I guess get ready for that. And
what's your first impressions? I want to know. What was your first impressions of it?
Love it.
Okay.
Anyway, that's usually I don't want to just reduce my review to that, but if I go into any more depth, I'm going to be talking about it, and I need to do not that right now. And here's specifically why. We have a Good Board Ugly Slack channel, and that Slack channel is currently open to anybody who can get the link, which is posted on the Good Board Ugly Guild. And if you get into that Slack channel, that is a kind of just a direct line of communication. TC's in it, Andy's in it, and I'm checking it at least daily now, and I've got like I have 2 different accounts so that I can check it from my phone because my phone was acting up when I tried to log in. Anyway, what that is basically just a message board where if you send something there, you'll be together with other podcast listeners and contributors, and it's just a really great place. I had a discussion there today specifically about the game and this game and my sort of reluctance on reviewing it. I had some really great input from Oscar, from Chris, and from Carmen at Game Surplus. And Carmen, what's really cool about Carmen, and I guess I'll just take this as a second here to plug Game Surplus as well, is that he's a real dude. Like, he's got his own opinions. He has his own, like he's not giving you, when he gave me this advice, it had nothing to do with like, here's how you can make it so that we sell more games for Game Surplus. Like, this is a gamer just like us. He's a hobbyist. He knows games. He has lots of experiences. He has experiences in historical war games just like you guys, and a love for like the area around Gettysburg, and also does like a 5th and 6th grader game night. So I mean, like, in a lot of ways I felt like, man, this guy sounds kind of similar. Like, I do that. I have like a game night for younger kids. GameSurplus.com is where you should be getting your board games. If you love this podcast, heavy cardboard, low player count, there's some really good content, and they are helping make it possible. Anyway, so what Carmen said really inspired me to talk about this game, and I specifically wanted to have you on, Jeff, when I talk about it, because we already sort of had a little mini review of this. Personal chat. I'm going to talk about Fabled Fruit.
All right, bring it on.
Okay. Now, Fabled Fruit is a very, very simple game that's all about filling recipes. Trent has already told our listeners how it's played. I'm not going to go into super depth. Just know that you're going to be getting cards generally randomly from the top of the deck, and you are going to be turning them in to juices, which are your ultimate points in the game. So Fabled Fruit is about using your little animal piece, going to a card, and then either having enough fruit to turn it into juice, which is ultimately how you're going to win the game. You need a certain amount of those. Or you're going to use an action. And anytime, in any case, when you go to a card, you do have to pay your opponents a card. So Fabled Fruit uses a Fabled system that is going to make the game consistently change every game that you play. Like, you're going to be getting new actions, at least about 6 or 8 of them in every new game. And I'm not saying 6 or 8 new actions. 6 or 8 new cards will come off the deck, which will result in at least 1, maybe 2 or 3 new actions being available to players. And these are also new recipes, because whenever you make a recipe, that card is now gone from the game. Anyway, so my thoughts on Fabled Fruit are, I have played it now with 2 separate groups, and the groups that I tried to kind of get specifically people who were not like heavy gamers, kind of, like people who are looking for easy to explain games. And in both of these groups, there has been very little interest to continue playing Fabled Fruit. And specifically, I'm going to talk about why I think. And that's, first of all, this game is just really, really simple. And recipe making is, in my opinion, one of the more, like, it just is kind of like, it doesn't offer you all that many decisions to make because you just are like, I have to get that, or that in combination. And in this game, you're generally going to be getting most of your cards from the top of the deck. So, I mean, it's just, your recipes are pretty simple. Like, do I have the cards? I'll go there and I'll turn it in. Now, the cards do get more interesting in terms of complexity, because they add new mechanisms to the game. However, in my own personal opinion, Fabled Fruit was not my cup of juice. And that's because...
Oh, that's bad.
That hurt, man. That hurt me on the inside.
Bees revenge.
It's because every one of these cards, when I saw it as like a hobbyist gamer, these cards had lots of words printed on them. I don't mean a ton, but like enough so that they had different effects than all the other cards there. But to me, I really categorized them into two different specific categories. And that was either cards that produced fruit, meaning put fruit into players' hands, as in like you draw off the top and it comes to your hand. And that's generally when you start the game, how the cards are going to get into the game is just right off the top of the deck. Or they're cards that let you exchange those in some way, shape, or form. Or essentially, like, there's open economy cards, or cards that there are actions that bring cards into the economy, and there are actions that just redistribute the cards that are already available. And I specifically was always favoring the cards that put more cards in the economy. And I keep using these cards interchangeably. So there's two sets of cards. There's the fruit cards and there's the action cards. So there are action cards that bring more fruit cards into the economy, of course, to the player that's taking them usually. It could be to other players because you do have to pay people to go to a spot. Basically, it just means people block spots because in this game, it's really hard to get fruit. You're only ever going to be getting like 2 at most usually, sometimes 3, but that's very rare. And on maybe once or twice in the game, you can get 4. In an entire game, you'll see that happen, maybe. So when you go to a place that somebody else is already on, you're spending a fruit to go there, and that's huge. That's like they just got a free turn. And so the cards that produce fruit are huge, and there aren't enough of them in the way the game is designed. There are cards that do not work with lower player counts. And to me, like, as I was playing this game, I was trying to get what I felt would be the best experience, the most applicable to experience to my different player counts, and the most applicable experience to the entire group, which is a cool new feature that you don't normally get to do in games. You don't normally get to tailor it to your playstyle. So that's new. However, I was really struggling to do that. I was trying to get cards that produced more fruit out, and it just felt like all these new cards that were coming off the deck were like, here, do all this crazy stuff, and all you're doing is either redistributing cards or actually in some cases losing cards to do an action. So, I mean, it wasn't really all that. The cards weren't what I wanted them to do. The action cards did not offer me much differences.
Oh, it didn't do what you wanted them to do.
No, and here's why, TC. Because as soon as the game started, about 4 or 5 minutes into every game of this, which games generally take about 20, 30 minutes, about 4 or 5 minutes in, I was ready for it to be over. Because that's all the more meat there is on this bone. Like, really, if I could equate it to something, and I'm using a bit of hyperbole, I do not hate Fabled Fruit, okay? I will say that. I do not hate Fabled Fruit, but it's one that as soon as I start playing it, I'm ready for it to be over. Because it's like you order a slab of ribs, and they give you, like, a rib that has already been gnawed pretty much all the way down, and they put it on, like, you know, like a sandwich bun, and it's not going to change what's underneath. Like, you can have the most delicious brioche sesame seed bun with amazing amounts of sauerkraut and all these other types of things.
This is getting weird at this point. I just got to tell you. Your metaphor is getting really strange. You could put that brioche on the ocean, and it could be rocking in the ocean.
And it just floats. It just floats.
And it'll bring the whole room together, man. It just brings the whole room together.
And then spear the brioche bun with its dorsal fin, and then take it to an island.
And it's like Poseidon. The whole thing goes upside down.
No idea. No idea what he's talking about. It's just like, okay, all right.
Maybe
Listen.
it's the beast that's going to my brain right now.
Oh my god!
But
Yeah,
ultimately,
there's something going on.
And if you take issue with that review, I would like to say I'm very grateful. Stronghold Games mailed me a review copy of Fabled Fruit, and I'm very grateful for that for the review copy. And ultimately, the way that I was left feeling after a game of Fabled Fruit was that I think the Fable idea is extremely cool, but there are two things. First of all, I'd kind of like to have more control over the specific order in which the action cards are being selected. So like to be able to kind of skip over those less interesting cards and be able to sort of tailor it more towards you.
Yeah, but the less interesting cards, I don't know. I think you might be missing a couple things here. So I'm going to put my 2 cents in, all right? Just for you to consider, okay? So the first thing I would say is you're absolutely correct. There are some cards that just don't work well with 2 players, okay? Or there are cards that are not really as they're not as beneficial as other cards that might be out in the display. Okay, so there are sort of optimal cards, and those are the ones that are going to get crowded with player pieces, and you're going to have to sacrifice a card from your hand or possibly 2 or whatever if you go there. So then you have to make that decision. Okay, so is it better for me to sacrifice this coconut that's in my hand that I really don't need and give that to somebody so that I can go to this card, which is definitely like better than this other card? Or do I go, over here, save that coconut because I can swap that out in the market the next time I go? So I don't think the game is devoid of decisions, all right? I mean, there are definitely some decisions to be made. And I would also challenge that, it's definitely a recipe-filling game. You're 100% right, but it's also a race game. So because it's the first to make so many juices, it's the first to make so many bottles of juice. So there's the race element involved there. So here's my point. If you have a card that's in your display that the players are looking at that is kind of not the greatest action card for this particular group or this particular account, or for this particular array of cards, depending on how the cards are coming out, well, that's the one that you're going to focus on making. Because one of the things that I found is that you can get a little meta with this game later, because you can sort of look at some cards and say like, okay, I love this card. This card is great. I'm actually not going to make that juice out of that card, because basically what you have is, I think there's 6 copies, if I'm not mistaken, of every card. So once those cards have all been made, they're gone. You're never going to see them again. They are out of the game. They're out of the Fable system, okay? They're not destroyed. They're not torn up. But they're basically put in the box into a separate bag, and you will never see them again until you've gone through the whole, the whole system, the whole deck of cards. And it's a beautiful, large deck of cards, okay? So they're like the tarot size.
Cards.
Oh, yeah. I mean, really cute and cool artwork. So the first thing that I'd like to challenge is, obviously there are some cards that might not be as good as others, but those are the ones you then want to concentrate on trying to make your juices from. Now, I think a valid criticism is the fact that, a lot of times you are taking a blind draw off the top of the deck, and so there's a significant luck element there. However, when the market cards are in the game, then you have a little bit more choice, you have a little bit more control, and you can do a little bit of planning, because there's an array of cards that will come out. You'll be sort of discarding cards to the market, fruit cards that is, and then you're going to be able to take cards from the market. So you can kind of swap, you can exchange, you can ditch cards that you really don't want and then take replacements from the draw deck. So there's all these different kinds of cards that will come into play when the market's in play. One of the things that I would have liked to have seen was the market be a consistent thing throughout the game. And so, when you and I talk, Joe, I really like that sort of market, that card flop, because it does give at least some information, gives you something that you can kind of plan for. And, I wish that it was there kind of all the time, but the nature of the concept of an ever-evolving and changing game is something that probably wouldn't be compatible with that idea. So to me, it's going to depend on how you look at it. You're either going to look at that as a feature or you're going to look at it as a flaw. The other thing that I would say is that once you kind of start to meta the game a little bit, you're going to see different combinations of cards coming out in different ways. Now, yes, there is a numerical order to them, okay? But I've seen, what is that? The Rhino card? It's one
the
of
Rhino is the very first card that comes out, and
like
it's
number
just
one.
Give you 2 cards, and that's the one that, like, in my metas so far, like, I have always pretty much given anybody the stink eye for making Rhino juice.
Same thing here. Yep.
Because that is the card that actually makes this game go.
Right.
Like, if
I've
take
seen
that away,
right. Right, and I've seen the Rhino go away early, and I've seen the Rhino hanging around when we're up to card like 43. Mm-hmm. So it all depends on the group. It depends on how people are thinking. It depends on the cards that are flopping out. And one of the things that I do like about the system is, yes, it's extremely simple. I don't think the game should be taking you a half hour. I mean, it's a pretty light, quick game.
Well, like 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
20 minutes,
I would say 20 to 30 if you're teaching, I think. But, like, it's...
Maybe if you're teaching, but teaching, my God, it's so simple. No, it's like, look at the cards. And
I literally taught this game, Jeff, one time by just, like, saying, hey, I'm going to go first.
Right.
And I'm not going to teach you this game. Like, literally, if you hate this game, it's because it's not my fault because I'm not teaching you.
Nice.
If you have rules questions or do something wrong, it's not my fault. You don't know the game.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing I think is important to note about the game is that I think it is definitely more of a family game. Like, I was really thinking this game had a shot at Spiel des Jahres because it's a very it's a fast game. It's a beautifully produced game. And it's extremely easy to teach and play. And that seems to be something that the jury seems to go for, They want games that are that, like, real family-friendly, lightweight. So I hear what you're saying. I think that your general kind of overview is relatively correct. I mean, you're either going to have cards that are going to give you cards, or you're going to have cards that are going to move cards, or you're going to have cards that do something for you, like protect you from other people taking your cards, or give you some sort of a benefit, like, one card allows you to turn in one less card when you're fulfilling a recipe, so you can kind of, have one freebie. There are cards that will give you fruit tokens that are sort of like constant fruit that you have, like you might have like a grape token, and that means that you always have one grape, whether you have a card or not, you have that grape. And then there's other kind of fun things about that, that I've seen used in other games, where if all of the tokens are gone and somebody turns in a card to get a token, everybody has to put all their tokens back. And then the person who turned in that card gets their pick now from the full array of tokens, So there's interesting little twists and things like that kept my attention. So I enjoyed the game. I think I gave it a positive review when I talked about it for all of the reasons that I'm discussing. But I also do get what you're saying. And, depending on what you're looking for, I think you're probably going to have a different opinion about the game. Has anybody else played it?
I have twice.
Okay, and where did you fall? You fall on Joe's side, my side. Where do you fall on this?
Here's where I feel on it. The theme killed this game. It needed to be the theme. The fruit, making smoothies. I'd take this game to a game night and put it like on a five games on a group of table, and no one want to play a game called Fabled Fruit. I mean, it's like what you do, you get cards and you make.
It sounds like
the theme. The theme. This should build it, and that's why it's being buried, because the theme is just that it's not a game people want to play. I'm
not
serious.
On my side,
I've seen it.
It's not on my side. I'm not accepting that criticism.
You better, because I've seen it. It happens. It stays on the rental shelf. People don't want to bring it out. They play like once and they're like, oh.
You can't be critical and you can't be on the critical side when that's your criticism, PTC.
It is, and it's true. The theme has killed this game. I bet you anything that's the reason it didn't make the Spiel des Jahres, because it's like there's all these other games about this one that's about fruit.
Dude, there's like 60 animal cards in it. They're all cute-looking animals. You have animal tokens. I mean, there's a game from Hobbit called Animal Upon Animal that's incredibly popular.
Yeah, but Hobbit games are designed for preschoolers, dude.
Well, that's the thing. That was the way that I felt. Is like
I love Monza, but Monza's not gonna make it out with the beyond my 7-year-old.
This game belonged, like, it needed a little, like, just a Hobbit logo on the box. Like,
it needed a better theme, is what it needed.
No,
well, and here's
there's nothing wrong with the theme. It's just but it is a family game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm just saying, every time I saw this come out of the game group, every time I brought it out to people, just like, nope, pass, and it just got buried in the stack of games, and no one wanted to touch it.
You play it with Carissa and your son and your daughter.
I did, and I checked it out, and I brought it from the plane. It was like, oh, that's neat. Can we play something else?
Go back to playing Washington's War and Gettysburg, and oh yeah, Daddy, bring out Time of Crisis.
No. Kate's got her own games. Kate's got her Star Trek Ascendancy. Liam's got his My First Stone Age and Zombies Jr. Thank you very much, which we love playing.
Well, if I could just respond to what you said, Jeff, I agree with your take. It sounds to me like you're most intrigued by the fact that there's always, like, you can't really put a pin down on what exactly Fabled Fruit is, that you're really able to kind of morph it into what you want. And I would say that the game here itself, like the competitive game, is so little that it becomes entirely about, like you mentioned, the metagame. So it's more about the choices you make in terms of keeping the right combination or keeping your own personalized combination of cards out. It's just, to me, it is such a low complexity game, such a simple, fairly well determined by what cards you end up with. And even when the market's available, the first 3 market cards, Jeff, the first one does not produce cards. You just have to take your action to trade cards you already have to have with cards that are in the market. And generally it is like, if you have cards, usually there's a card you can make. Generally, I don't know. I found that if you have 5 or 6 cards, usually there's some card out there. So I mean, like the card where you just exchange and don't get any cards, to me, it's just like that. You know, like I'm not going to use that. I'm looking for cards that are always making my hand bigger, because the only time that I really care about using that is in situations when I've already got bunches of cards. And then the ones after that were all like had to do with one of them was you had to have a strawberry. You put down a strawberry card into the market. Mm-hmm. And then you take up to 3 non-strawberries. So, I mean, you're only taking 2 extra cards there. So, I mean, like, I agree with what you said, and the market definitely gives you more control, but you're kind of sacrificing the ability to get more cards. And I would posit that more cards is just as good as more control. And thus, that's why I wanted like, the card distribution to just be, like, normalized. Like, you get a card every turn or something. And then it's like, all these actions are like, what do you do with it? Or, you know, and I'm not saying that would necessarily work, but I see all the positives you were saying, but I wanted there to be something that kept me more interested in the game. So anyway, Andy, did you have anything to say about Fabled Fruit?
Other than I think that you gave it to me to play with my 8-year-old.
Yeah, you're gonna give it that shot and see if how it works that way. And then I'm gonna take it back.
It's still sitting in the closet right now.
Yeah, it's sitting in the closet. You want to play it.
So are you, TC. It's all dark there.
That's right.
You're all dark, and you're sitting in the closet.
He's got his big red microphone. Joe, I will, though, say, stop playing with your peas.
Oh, is that loud?
Oh, yeah, you can hear that.
I apologize.
All right.
Sorry, guys.
I got my kids group more involved in Conquest of Paradise than over Fabled Fruit.
Oh, my God.
All right.
Are these the Children of the Corn? Who is it that you're playing?
That's a middle school group that met every other Friday.
Oh, my goodness.
Whatever.
Jeff, you just gave me the idea.
What?
For what I'm going to call my kids' reviews on the Sound Coefficient. The Sound Coefficient, my video review podcast that takes a weird like joy in being from Iowa by having
Children of the Corn.
Yes, Children of the Corn is what my video review for kids series is going to be called.
There you go. There you
like,
go.
Play Fabled Fruit or Cosmic Encounter. They always went for Cosmic Encounter every single time.
All right.
I just
all right.
we're gonna
Moving
give a
right
quick
along. Nothing to see here.
An interlude to Andy.
An interlude. All right.
Yes,
here
an
we go.
interlude to Andy because he's not going to be reviewing a game, but he asked for a moment to be able to say something.
Yeah, because
Go ahead, Andy.
yeah, we've been like, I don't know, like 3 weeks without gaming for me, so I don't have anything to review.
Do you need a hug?
I played 2 games with Andy, or actually 4 games on 2 separate game nights within that period of time, and apparently they were that forgettable.
Yeah, well, they were like single plays, and I don't want to base it on that. Anyway, I was just going to do a shout out to Tony Fryer from Dual Gauge, and formerly of Heavy Cardboard. It was just kind of cool when I was at HeavyCon. I was trying to do 18 CLE with a couple different groups and get him in a game, and it ended up he couldn't. So I lent him my copy of 18 CLE because I'm like, well, we got a backup of like 6 18XX games to play right now. We're not going to get back to this one very soon. And he was like, oh, that's awesome. And he gave me a shout out on Dual Gauge, and he just sent it back to me. And like, I opened the box and like, wait, this is like way heavier than it's supposed to be. And like a copy of Acrotiri fell out and like a thank you note. And he's just like, hey, this didn't work for me and my wife, but hey, you got similar taste to mine. Thanks for letting me borrow the game. And I just thought that was a really classy thing to do. So
nice.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I just wanted to give a shout out to that. And yeah, I couldn't review games because I haven't played enough. So
Yep.
Cue the sad music.
Yeah.
I'm playing the hell out of stuff right now. But
Oh God.
Which is like Andy's own little metagame thing.
That's pretty much.
Like, I don't know how he affords the ink and the paper and the. Oh my God.
I married a college professor who makes 4 times my income.
Beautiful.
Well, that's one way to
That's
do it.
beautiful.
That's where I messed up.
That's awesome. So you're like a kept man. I love that. That's like my dream, is to be a kept man. I want to be a kept man. I just want my wife to give me some money and say, "Here, go get yourself something nice."
That's legitimately happened because she's an accounting professor.
That's awesome.
Before we were married, she made a spreadsheet. She's like, "So I figured out how we can repay all of your school debt in 4 years." I'm like, I'm just giving you my paycheck. You tell me what my play money is, okay?
Pretty much, exactly. My wife does the same thing. She handles all of that. And I'm just like, here you go. Tell me what we're gonna do. So that's all good. So I've been playing a game called Fields of Green. This is another stronghold. This is designed by Vangelis. Oh my God! Here we go. A Baglertakis, and this is a game that was kind of it's like a. It's always tricky when you say retheme or reskin because then people just immediately assume it's a cash grab. But it really does. It uses the sort of Among the Stars system that he had kind of come up with before, which is, so let me give you a little background. Among the Stars was a drafting game, very much like Seven Wonders, but that had a spatial element. Okay, so it was a space-themed game, and you drafted cards just like you do in Seven Wonders, and there's different types of cards, just like there are in Seven Wonders, but you had the added element of where you placed things was important. Okay, which for me was really interesting. Okay, because as much as I love Seven Wonders, I like that one extra step of saying, well, where I put this card actually matters and it's important. And so that was something that I enjoyed about that system. So Fields of Green comes out, which is basically using the same system. It utilizes square cards with lovely illustrations on them, just like in Among the Stars. But this is kind of more of like a farming sort of a theme. Okay, so if you're like a fan of like Agricola or that kind of idea of like running your own farm, this would be the game for you, because now what we're dealing with is you start off with basically a couple water towers and a couple grain silos, and you just kind of you're going to go from there, and you're going to build this farm up. So you basically have a couple of currencies in the game. The currencies being water and grain. And you're going to need water, kind of like you needed energy in Among the Stars, in order to be able to produce in your fields and things of that nature. And then you're going to need grain for your animals and to feed them. And so your farm kind of grows. And once again, we have different types of cards. But one of the interesting things about this iteration is you're kind of picking. So there are different stacks of cards, and they're all color-coded, so it's very easy to set up. And so at the start of each round, you're going to sort of choose how many of each type of card do I want to take. Do I want to take these purple cards, which are kind of like endgame bonus cards? Do I want to take these red cards, which are all about animals and livestock? Do I want to take field cards? So there's all these different kinds of choices, and then everybody else is doing the same thing. So everybody kind of grabs a distribution of cards that they want, but you have no control over what other people are grabbing. But at the same time, you can kind of watch what other people are doing, and you can sort of decide, okay, based on what Joe took, maybe I want to take more livestock cards because no one else has been taking livestock. Joe took a bunch of endgame cards, so I know I'm going to get to see some of those. So fine, I'll just load up heavy on livestock. And TC took a lot of field cards, or whatever. You kind of make your own example in your mind. Then you start your draft, and so you start drafting cards and putting them into your farm. And once again, where they go is important, which is kind of the fun part, because a lot of the card combinations have to do with, if this card is within a certain distance of this other type of card, that's going to give you points. Or, if you have all of these type of animals together, that's going to give you points. If you have a wide variety of different types of cereal grain crops, that's going to give you points. So there's all of these different ways that you can card combo. So if you're a fan of card combos and you like this sort of farming theme, like my wife does, like she loves the idea of building. Like she's really big on games where you build your own thing and you do your thing. So that, of course, then begs the question, is the game multiplayer solitaire? And in some ways it is, but because of the drafting, it does actually you do care about what other people are doing, and you are watching what other people are doing. And it does matter, but you basically do have control over what you're doing at the end of the day. So it's got that kind of nice little mixture of, it's mostly solitaire, but you do have enough interaction to keep things interesting. It kind of reminds me a little bit of maybe Castles of Burgundy in that way. I wouldn't say Castles of Burgundy is high on player interaction, but there is interaction. There's competition. I really want that ship, or I really want this bank tile. And do I think that Andy's going to take it before I get to it? Should I spend the workers to rotate the die? Take it now, that kind of a thing. And you're going to have that same sort of experience when you're drafting the cards. So definitely a game that I've enjoyed. My wife enjoys it more than me. I'm not super big on the farm theme, but it has enough going for it with combo building that I enjoy it.
Is it like Among the Stars where you like draft your cards? Are they? I think was it cards or tiles in Among the Stars? It's been so long since I played it.
It's cards. It's square cards.
It's little squares,
cards, yep.
like little square cards, and you build just in front of you, and you're just building your own tableau in front of you, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that.
Okay. So Jeff, what I got first of all, until you tanked your review by saying that the farming theme wasn't very hot for you, I really enjoyed the rest of your review. No, I did. I thought it was really cool that you it sounds like it's a drafting game, but what's in these hands that you draft, you're in control of. Like, what deck people are, you can see what people are drawing from. In a way, I don't know. There's it's so rare that type of thing happens where you're drawing, but you kind of get a choice. It almost reminds me of Bruges, but there's so few games where where people are drawing from different decks and it really matters that much to you exactly what they're drawing from when it's not tied to something larger.
Right.
This sounds like a really interesting new wrinkle on the drafting. Now, my main complaint that I ever had with Among the Stars was it felt like Seven Wonders that added a spatial element but took out the feeling of progression, really. Like, I never felt much progression because, there wasn't really the discount sort of system, which was something I enjoyed from Seven Wonders. And then Among the Stars, like what it used to replace that with wasn't quite as exciting to me, I guess, but neither of those games excels that much. Now, my question for you about the theme is, are you unimpressed with how they executed it, or their just choice in general to do farming?
I think how they executed it is fine. A lot of it makes sense. There are certain, animals, for example, that, you need to have, like your draft animals are going to take a lot of your grain. There are certain crops that require more water than others. There's the way they executed the theme, I think, is fine. I don't have a problem with it at all. It's just that, it's another game about farming, and that's not my favorite theme personally. So, the fact that I still like the game, I think, says something about it, because normally I'm not running out to grab, games about farming and, getting improvements for my farm, like a water trough or tractors it's not normally something that I would gravitate towards, but because I liked the system and Among the Stars, I wanted to give this one a shot. So I've enjoyed it. I like it maybe a little bit more than Among the Stars, and I'm trying to figure out why. I think it has to do with that choosing of the cards when you draft from the different stacks.
Yeah.
I also think that Among the Stars, for me, eventually, I mean, you have to understand, this game and Among the Stars are real table hogs. They get big. They get really big.
Even though they're littler cards.
Exactly. But Among the Stars got, I used to play with all the expansions, and it just got to be like this beast. And so this is kind of stripped down to something that is quick to play, pleasant to play, has really fun combos that you can try to pull off, interesting, scoring opportunities, and it doesn't already have, Among the Stars, I think, ended up with like 4 or 5 expansions.
I think 5.
Yeah. And so I liked the expansions, but towards the end there, I was just like, oh God, man, this game is just, I need like 2 tables for it. Yeah.
With Seven Wonders, it was kind of like that. And what ended up happening was so many of those expansions, like, they widened the game more than made it deeper. And so ultimately you end up with so much extra bulk that it's like getting that game out is, like, especially if you've got people who you're not sure if they've played all the expansions, it's like, how much of this stuff do I need to explain? And then it ends up becoming more than I think what I really liked about it in the first place. Like the game was well suited and very successful in its base form, and then adding some of these things may have worked to make me excited to get that game back out again, but they never really changed what it was that I liked about it in the first place. They just end up kind of adding more stuff that ultimately makes it longer. I don't know if that's what it sounds like to you, Jeff, but that happened to me with Seven Wonders, which I probably haven't played in a year or more.
No, I think that's probably fair enough to say that.
Would you recommend this one over Among the Stars?
Personally, I would right now. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I liked, I don't know, man, it's tough. I like the space theme, but I didn't love the sort of combat system that was in there in Among the Stars, and I kind of prefer this more peaceful kind of version, I think. And usually I'm more into the player interaction, but I don't know. I kind of either because it's new or because I feel there's some differences and some more interesting choices. I think I prefer this one.
Generally I don't like games that the game gets pulled in front of you and everybody's doing their own thing. I prefer games where you're all interacting in the middle. But I did like it. I did enjoy Among the Stars quite a bit.
I feel like they should have used Grant Wood art. Like, that would have made this great. As an Iowa person, I would have given it a 10 based on the box art alone. So, no, it sounds like there's some really good comments here. that about the system being deeper than it appears, from Carmen at Game Surplus, who's chiming in on our live chat, because of the ability to get equipment tiles and the fact that you can choose what cards what cards you're getting, kind of is what it sounded like. So anyway, thanks, Geoff. That was Fields of Green. And the other game that you were going to talk about, we're going to get to in our hype section, because it was more of a hype than anything, right? You were just picking up that copy of the game like when we talked a few days ago, right?
Yeah, I just played it today. Just finally got my first play in. So we'll talk a little bit about that game later at the end of the show.
All right, great. Well, sir, you are now on the floor to tell us all about this really unique gaming convention that distinguishes itself by being less about what's new and hip and what's coming out and demoing games and buying games, and more about like going really like just intense into the games that are already released.
So the WBC is an interesting convention. It's the first convention that I started going to because it was my local convention. It was only about an hour and a half away from me. And so it was kind of my first convention experience. And I would say, you know, now that I've been to Gen Con, I've been to Origins, I've been to BGG Con, it has a very unique place, I think, in the hobby. And I think that ultimately the move to Seven Springs may be good for WBC because the facilities are much nicer. There's more room to grow. And I think that it's going to be good for the con. The thing about it that makes it so different is this, you know, competition aspect. The competition is, I would say, I don't know, like 80–90% of the time, very friendly. You know, people are just having a good time. And you don't have to be an expert in the games. A lot of the games that they have tournaments for, there are lots of sort of like heats, and there are teaching sessions. So even if you haven't actually played a game, like for goodness sake, that there was a tournament for Here I Stand, and they did a teaching session for it. So
Ooh.
You know, you could go
Whoa.
and you could learn from somebody who really knew that game extremely well, and they could teach you the game. You had a whole session of that. You play through, you know, some different examples and see different things, and then you go and you play a heat of the tournament, either that day or the next day. So, and the nice thing about it is, you know, you can stay in a tournament, you can drop out of the tournament, you can join the tournament oftentimes later in different heats until you get to kind of like, you know, your quarterfinal, semifinal kind of a thing. So there's lots of opportunities not only to play games in a competitive environment with other people who really know the game, but you can also come in as a newbie and just have, you know, a good experience. I mean, you might get your butt handed to you, but in general, people are very, very nice, helpful. You know, there aren't really people who are too uptight about like giving advice and helping a new player until you get towards the end. And then people, you know, it's like the tournaments get quieter the further along, you know, you go.
Yeah, of course.
And I mean, and I get that, you know, because this is something that, you know, people have been coming to for years and years and years. And, you know, they've participated in certain tournaments forever. I mean, Eric Brocious, his wife has been running the Ticket to Ride tournament for I don't know how many years. And she has hundreds, literally hundreds of players in that tournament every year. The Terraforming Mars tournament had at least a couple hundred people. We played in a fun little tournament of Liar's Dice. They had a Liar's Dice tournament. And the Liar's Dice tournament, there had to be at least a couple hundred people there. And, they start off the tournament, by everybody, while you're waiting for everything to get, settled in and all the tables to get set and, all the people to be seated and signed up and everything. People are just raucous and loud and banging their cups on the table with the dice in them. And
you're going to need earplugs in that room. That would
it's crazy.
Shaking dice
crazy.
cups.
Yeah, absolutely crazy.
Roy my eardrums.
That's an experience you are not going to have anywhere else. Like, you're not going to get that at BGG-Con. You're not going to get that at, Origins or Gen Con. I mean, there are some Gen Con events, I think, that come close to that. But, there are also things that are just incredibly unique. Like this year, I went with my buddy Matt, and he and I, he said to me, "Oh, Jeff, I'm going to this tournament. You got to come with me." I'm like, "What is it?" He's like, "Faxon 5." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Faxon 5." And I'm thinking, what the heck is Faxon 5? This is an old Avalon Hill bookcase game, is Faxon 5. I don't need to, was it Avalon Hill or was it, I'm looking it up right now, Faxon 5. So this is a game that was put out in 1964. Okay? This is a 1964 game. And it was put out by, the designer is Richard Onanian, and the publisher was, it was 3M, and then it was Avalon Hill. So this is a game that I'd never played before. It's ancient, and yet I went, and there was a tournament. There was at least 150 people sitting in the room playing Faxon 5. And so it's 5 rounds, and there are 5 different categories in each round. And so the different categories could be, everything from Tony Award-winning musicals from 2000 to the present. Or it could be something like, one of the categories we had was Canadian prime ministers, or brands of motorcycle, right? Different manufacturers of motorcycles. And so there's 5 different categories, and then they'll give you 5 letters, like L, M, S, T, W. And you have a ballot, like a piece of paper where you write down your answers, and it's all on the honor system. And you write down you fill in as many answers as you possibly can. And so we had an absolute blast with this game because, if I say to you, "Oh, name motorcycle manufacturers," you're like, no problem. Until somebody says, "Name one that starts with a W," and you're like, your mind goes blank. And then, all of a sudden you see the answers and you're like, "Oh, how could I have forgotten that?" Or how did I not remember that? So we played this tournament from a game from 1964. You're never going to get that experience anywhere else. And you have a group of people laughing, having a great time. The guy that runs the thing is apparently legendary. He makes like this huge PowerPoint presentation because, of course, the game has to be modernized. The version from 1964 would not play well today. So he makes up his categories and assigns the letters and, et cetera, et cetera. And then everybody turns in their ballots each round. They're scored. And then, there's a winner of the tournament. So it's like every game that you can possibly imagine is there for you to participate in a tournament. So I played in that tournament, and then there was a Terraforming Mars tournament. So it runs the full gamut of these sort of evergreen games, really old classic games, all the way up to the latest, greatest hotness. So that's one of the things that I think differentiates the WBC from everything else. And, the other thing that I would say is, and this is something that the Heavy Cardboard guys talked about, when they did their podcast. We had Amanda talking with Edward, is the idea that this is also a con where the huge kind of big games, the big war games, the games that take, 8 hours, 12 hours, the games that take several days. This is really the only convention where you're going to go and find a group of people, not just one or two, not just one strange little group of a dude sitting off in the corner playing this game. You're going to have a group of people playing that game, several tables of that game. There was one whole room that I think was the World in Flames room.
Yeah, the World in Flames. I saw pictures. I don't know who said it was you or Edward, but
that was Edward. Yeah,
it was like 2 tables with this game. They had like lamps over it with the magnifying glasses in the middle, and guys hunched over with tweezers moving your chits around.
Yep.
That looked fantastic.
I mean, you're not going to get that experience anywhere else.
And that's like that game is like takes weeks to play. And
yes, it does.
I think that
yes,
that's like Advanced Third Reich. I think that's where it's a lineage, but that thing is like that's World War II and the kitchen sink, man.
That's everything. Yep, it's everything. So, those are the things to me that really sort of set the WBC apart. Then on top of that, you have open gaming, where you have a lot of people, come in. There's a very respectable, very nice library of games that you just sign out. You don't have to leave your driver's license, which kind of freaked me out at Origins a little bit. You just sign your name with your badge number and you take a game. And there's a lot of old games as well as the newest stuff, and there's a lot of out of print games, and they just, everybody is just really cool. Everybody's laid back. Everybody's nice. Nobody ever thinks about, anybody taking anything that doesn't belong to them. You just sign out whatever game you want. You go, you play it. And so there's a lot of open gaming going on. And it's a very friendly environment. And so I really have a soft spot for that convention. And I think it does a lot of things right. And I think it offers something different. So if you are a competitive person, if you are the kind of person that likes to test yourself against another mind who knows the game as well as you do, I'm looking at you, Andy, right? If you want to really I heard some of the things you were talking about from HeavyCon. WBC is like a perfect fit for you.
Absolutely.
You've got, all these guys who play 18xx, constantly, the war games, the heavy Euros.
I have a question for you, Geoff, if that's all right. And this is regarding kind of like Andy's experience at Gen Con. Would you, Andy, go quickly into your experience at Gen Con in the Puffing Billy room?
Yeah,
and then I think it's appropriate. Sorry.
Yeah, a little bit, because I think my experience in that situation was like, I don't know, like I didn't come off with a positive vibe because it wasn't clear what was going on. So when I signed up for events there, it wasn't really clear that these were going to be tournament events. And, then they got very like, hey, no takesy backsies. And, I screwed up. And yeah. Basically, I had planned to move on a game I had never played before. And I'm like, oh, this will get me second if I do it this way. And I had forgotten about a certain rule. And they're like, oh, wow, you get last place now. And I'm like, oh, wonderful. But it just was like that. Like, it wasn't a warm, welcoming experience, really. Like, they're like, oh, you're new. Okay, here's your badge sticker, blah, blah, blah. Here's a game. And like, the thing that really turned me off, and ultimately in the end of that, was I was trying to find some 18xx to play at Gen Con that I hadn't before. And I'm like, well, they at least are likely to have games I've never seen before. And so they did this 18xx potluck. And I'm like, okay, so how's this going to work when I come up? And I'm like, oh, how's this going to work? Because you guys only slotted in 4 hours for this. And a lot of these games take longer than 4 hours. They're like, oh, you just stop after 4 hours.
Yeah. I would say that, listen, I'm not going to, be dishonest. I have played in games with people who were unpleasant. Mm-hmm. And, it happens. I would say the vast majority of the people that I've played with have been, awesome, very nice, very gracious people. And so I think what you're going to find is you're going to find a large group of people at the WBC who are thrilled to have somebody interested in the game that they love and are trying to recruit new members to the club. That's the general vibe. You know, it's like, I really want you to learn this game, play this game with me, because I want you to love it like I love it. Things do get squirrely the further along in, the further along that you get in a tournament. In early rounds, people are going to have no problem with taking back a move. It's like chess. Until the next person starts their move, you can always go, oh, wait a minute. Do you guys mind if I do this? And, you always ask out of courtesy, and people are like, yeah, sure, whatever,
Oh, no. Andy cringed. Andy cringed when you said that, and I noticed the Andy cringe. Explain, Andy.
Really? Why?
Take back. Oh, I think we were playing, like, the take back thing is one that will stick with me, because I was playing Firefly, the board game, with my wife and her chess coach. And I had done my moves out of sequence, because you can always do like 2 things or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I did that out of sequence. I should have flipped those 2 around. And her chess coach is like, yep, no take backs. Okay, thanks. Because we're playing the game of super strict high strategy.
Exactly. Yeah. Trying to misbehave.
Right?
We're misbehaving.
Up in delivery. Hey, Jeff, I want to ask you a question right quick.
Sure.
Did you play in the Churchill tournament with Mark Herman?
No, I did not play in the Churchill tournament. No, sorry. No.
I saw he was there running it, and I was like, oh, that would have been so much fun.
Yeah, he was there, and also I think the designers of Time of Crisis were there. So
yeah, I know they were there showing the game.
That would have made you happy too, as well. I think. No, most of the time when I go to the WBC, I'm there for open gaming. I'm there to hang out with people that I only see once a year. These are people that I don't get to see that often.
Well, all your friends come to you, Jeff. That's nice.
No, these are like, some of the guys from Virginia, some of the guys even from Jersey that I don't get to see that often, they the very busy work schedules. And, John is a guy that I see every year there for the past few years. And I always have a blast hanging out with John. So, and now that I've met Carmen and I know Carmen and got a chance to game with him, I look for, I'm going to look forward to playing games with Carmen. So it's one of those things where, you make friends when you're there, and that's not exclusive to WBC. I mean, that's kind of the same way it is with every convention. Mm-hmm. It's like a nice, cool added bonus, but I'm not super, I don't know, like at this point, I don't have a desire to win a tournament. Like it's not something. No, I just did that because I'd never played it before. Actually, Edward and Amanda. Edward and Amanda taught me the game 10 minutes before the tournament started. So, I just like, hey, why not? And that's one of the things, again, about WBC. There's always someone there who's willing to teach you a game, and then you go play in a tournament of it. And it doesn't matter if you lose, or if you win, you might make it to the next round. And that's really exciting. That's kind of memorable. And then you lose. Okay, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't bother me. The thing that I don't like about tournaments is the scheduling. Yeah. Where I have people who will say like, oh, I'm like, oh, cool. You want to sit down and play, tramways with me. And they're like, well, I got another heat of Puerto Rico in, 2 hours. Do you think we can get done by then? And it's like, I don't know. I got to teach you the game. We should be able to get done.
At any convention though, Jeff, people are going to have events scheduled. I mean, it's, that's just another event. And then the thing that's tough, I think, from the participant side, though, is I specifically hate it in being that person who's like, well, do I schedule an event or do I not schedule an event with, the fact that I might be committed to a tournament if I win, but then I sometimes end up with like an entire afternoon off. And, it's just kind of an awkward thing when you've got the, tournaments where you may or may not be essentially have your time committed in advance.
Right. But I would say that it's amplified at the WBC because so many people like Eric Brocious, every year, I try to sit down and play a game with Eric, but there are, years like this year where I didn't get a chance to do that because he's either in a tournament, he's running a tournament, or our times just don't, match up, because he plays in a lot of he plays in a lot of tournaments. He's in the Princes of Florence tournament. He helps his wife out with Ticket to Ride tournament. There's all these different tournaments that he's involved with, let alone the 18xx stuff. So, Eric is a great ambassador for gaming in general, and I love playing games with him. But his schedule is so tight that it's almost impossible for me to hook up with him. So this is one of the reasons why I don't tend to sign up for any tournaments in advance. It's just like you said, Joe, if I have like a hole, oh, we finished this game early. Oh, and so-and-so's going to do this. I don't really have anything to do. Let's look up and see what tournaments are playing. Oh, I know how to play that game. Yeah, I'll go play a heat of that. And that's kind of a cool thing to be able to do.
They let you in. Does it have to be the start of the tournament, or can you just go play a heat and be like?
Yeah, if they're heats, it's generally open. You can go in. But once you kind of get down to the nitty gritty, then you needed to you will need a certain number of wins or a certain position or rank at your table in a certain number of heats. So there might be 4 heats of a game, and to proceed to the next round, you have to have, 1, 2 heats, or maybe you had to come in first or second in 2 heats or something like that, right? So the heats are kind of free form. You can come in as long as there's a spot. If they need a player at a table, you can just sit down and play in that heat, and that's fine. So yeah, it's pretty freewheeling when it comes to that.
That's, it sounds to me like there's just a really great balance for pretty much whatever you're looking for. My big question is, are there people who are coming from really far away specifically to compete? Is that generally the way that this is going?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There are people who come from other countries.
Yeah. Well, the WBC, it's not the USABC.
No. I mean, there are people who come from other countries, and I'm not just talking Canada. There's a very large Canadian contingent. And those guys are great. But there's people that come from all over to come because this is the only convention that really seems to offer this kind of environment and this kind of opportunity. I mean, sure, there's the Catan World Championship, I think, that happens every year at Gen Con or something like that. But that's not the same thing as, we're playing, the ASL tournament, or, we're playing in the, again, perfect example, Princes of Florence tournament. That tournament's been going on for I don't know how many years, People come every year and play Princes of Florence. And there are people who have got a renowned reputation of being awesome at that game. Yeah. And if you win a heat against them, that's like a huge accomplishment. People are like, wow, you beat so-and-so at this game. Unbelievable, man. So, and that's kind of that whole laurel system that they have where, when you have a victory or whatever, you earn laurels, and then those laurels are sort of added to your WBC account. And every year, you'll have a number of laurels printed on your badge. And so, there are some people, with tons of laurels, and people like me who have nothing, so.
Well, you've made me feel a lot more at ease about it because, when I've considered WBC, it's always been well, I'm really interested in going out and getting to game with a lot of the East Coast people that I've become familiar with through, through podcasting and other forms of media. And I've always been kind of wondering, am I going to end up in that situation where I'm the guy who's do you mind if I take that back? And it immediately throws the entire table into this tailspin of oh my God, you've just put him in an uncomfortable situation. You should just forfeit. It's okay, I did game too.
Yeah. One of the things that I've never been to WBC, but one of the things I always follow out of it is I'm always interested to see the session reports for Paths of Glory. I love reading those things. It's always interesting to see how even watching 2 pros go at a game and seeing the strategies they use on a game you like is always very fascinating for me to read up and watch. I would love to go to WBC just to watch because they had a For the People tournament, and it was just
they do. Yeah.
I would love to see the last 2 people play that game. I would stand there and watch it just to see how that whole thing went down.
It's like
so
the opposite of esports.
It's slow motion tennis.
Yeah.
So
lots of people be strategic.
Yeah.
No, but I agree. Like I'm very entertained by high levels of play in the games that I'm very passionate about. So I mean, it is
because you're like, oh my gosh, they did what? I never thought of doing that. That's amazing.
It's never to the level of like I just watched on Vice News, like they were showing Dota 2, the online game that literally has an $11 million prize for the winning team. And to me that was just ridiculous. It's like I can't imagine $1 of my money going towards that prize. Like if I ever did, I am really upset. Like if I bought a Gatorade and that Gatorade donated to Dota, like no.
Hey, what if the Gatorade was on a fine brioche bun?
With sesame seeds.
And it
what was the Fabled Fruit
ocean.
edition?
Limoncello? That's what it is. Limoncello, right?
Yeah.
What you guys did during your liar's dice? That's what it is. It's been marinated in limoncello.
Hey, Joe, don't let me forget when we get Edward on. I want to ask him how his dominant species tournament went because I think
exactly because I know that Edward was like pumped that he was going to be actually competing at that higher level. So I mean, for a lot of us, we don't get to play at that higher level, especially for the games that we're like. Okay, I'm not going to say that I'm good at any game, but I know that there are games that I don't want to play with other people because they're really, really, really good at it. So those type of people, like I'm going to like kind of like very passively avoid those games without ever making it stink about it because it's like, oh, they're really good. And that's a place to get to play. And maybe there are games out there that could be like that for me. I'm not saying there are any, but they're, I can understand that being a really big sell for this. So to me, like, it sounds like if you're going there as a convention, like it does have all the trappings of like pick up and play. Maybe not on a level of like Board Game Geek Con, because it sounds like that's the only thing that you do there. But here, like, it's definitely something that's present enough. Maybe it's comparable to Origins in the pick up and play level because that Origins board game room is fairly open. And there's like, Origins, there's not that many big releases announced. So everybody's just kind of like, there to have fun and play games.
Yeah, it feels very similar to Origins in that way. Definitely similar to Origins in the open gaming vibe, I would say for sure. And then the tournament vibe just adds, a different kind of, just something different. And so, while you can't ever guarantee that you're not going to run across a tool, most people, that I've encountered, I've really only had one bad tournament experience, and the rest of it, has been all good, and everything else has been great. And the one bad tournament experience I had was with Raw the dice game, for God's sake. This dude was like all intense about it. And, I did meet one other tool. We played Seven Wonders the year it came out, my whole family. And nonetheless, there was somebody who was huffing and puffing that, my son sat down. And I think he must
have been like 7 years old at this time.
Yeah, he was like 8 or 9. All right. But he had been playing that game ever since it came out at home, and he knew exactly what the hell he was doing. And this guy was, I didn't know there was going to be kids here. And
those people can go jump off a cliff.
And,
that's when you tell, hey, why don't you go, kid, go shake his hand, go kiss him on the cheek.
And so Carter just calmly played his game and beat him. And I was just like, yeah, okay, you can go suck eggs, buddy, because my 8-year-old just schooled you in Seven Wonders, and that's what you get for being an ass. So
did you see what Carmen said here about the For the People tournament? That some guy says like Joe Pill won For the People many times. Dude from Norway flew in 1 year and defeated him. High drama. See, I would love just to sit and watch that. That would be great.
That'd be cool. I don't know why I'm not seeing these comments here, man. You guys are getting comments I'm not getting. Joe, I'm very disappointed in how this is going, Joe.
Joe, Hangout and click on that. All you got to do is do one click here, Jeff. You're going to be okay. All right?
No,
I'm going to show you all how to do it, and then I'm going to let you go, After 1 hour of training, I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
And then you're going to forget how to do everything, and you're going to blame me.
Uh-huh.
Do you see the link, though, in our chat here on the Google Hangout?
No.
Should be on the right-hand side. It's over
I see
here,
it.
Jeff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Under the Good Boy Ugly. It's
chat, and there you go. Say hi to your friends.
yeah. Okay. So I say hi. Okay.
No.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
Yeah.
Hey, Andy. I hear
So
you.
is the link at
That's
the
in our
top.
chat there. Click on that link I shared at the very top.
Yeah.
Jeff.
Yeah. Okay. And now what?
That's where you find everybody else. That's the 4 of us.
Ah,
You just said hi
look
to
at
the
that.
4 of us. Hi, Jeff. It's good to see you.
That. Nice. And we got Blue Bug 123.
That's me.
Yes, that is TC who tends
That's
to
TC? Oh, come on, dude.
doppelgangers.
Seriously?
That's my daughter's computer. Give me a
TC
break.
TC goes as Kate most of the time. He is just Kate in our chat. The fact that he's
on the
tattered board
brioche
is
line.
Keeping it
respectful.
real.
Talking about Carmen. Carmen's trash talking me now. Jeff's been sitting on the brioche line for an hour.
I mean, my comment might lose me speaking privileges. That's why I typed it and didn't say it.
Oh man, yeah. Carmen was talking about the dudes from Japan that came, and I mean, there's a lot of people who come from all over the place. So, I would definitely strongly encourage anybody to come and check out the WBC. I think it's a con that is going to give you definitely that unique sort of experience and feel. It's going to be different. Every con has its own flavor, but a lot of times it's like different. How can I put this? Let me put this in a way that Joe can understand. So here's what I'm thinking. Some are like a rye. Okay. Some cons are like a good wheat. Okay. And some are like a good sourdough,
Are they in the ocean?
but they're all breads. They're all breads. You see what I'm saying? And some of the breads are salted, some are unsalted. Some may like that, some may not. Okay, but they're all breads. They're all in the bread family. And the WBC is kind of like a biscuit or something. Like it's
a biscuit
different.
with gravy.
It's a biscuit. Yeah, it's a biscuit with some special sauce. So there you go. All right. So that's what I have to say about the WBC. Now I'm going to pull a Forrest Gump. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, I will never use metaphors around Jeff again. That's it.
You brought it on yourself, dude.
You can totally feel free to use metaphors.
No.
Just make sure they make sense.
No, Joe, you are just as good at metaphors as you are with transitions.
That's true.
That's pretty high
True,
praise.
Andy.
Such high praise.
So here's what I want to know, though, before I leave. Here's what I want to know. I want to know, have I convinced any of you to go to WBC next year?
I think
Yeah,
I would
I
like
was-
to do it at some point. I don't know if I would be able to do it next year or when, but because I think the thing I was worried about initially was the idea of it being a lot of tournaments, because I'm not inherently a terribly competitive person. I just like to have a good time with it. But from what I've heard from you and Edward from Heavy Cardboard talking about it, it's like the tournament thing isn't that stressful or problematic or whatnot. So that kind of, I don't know. It's something I would probably, if I were to go to conventions next year, I would say one of the top 3 I would choose would either be going back to HeavyCon, going to Origins, or going to the WBC would probably be one of my top 3 picks.
Fantastic. Then my work here is done. What about you, TC? You're all the way out on the West Coast.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is it's distance. I've always wanted to go to WBC and see all this stuff. So I always keep watch what happened on BGG and the session plays and all that. So I've been mainly regulated to going to the GMT West over here.
Right.
And Harold Buchanan's invited me to the San Diego Historical Convention. I'm hoping
nice.
that'll be my birthday present because I really want to meet Volko Ruhnke. He's supposed to be the guest.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy. I tell you, I had a conversation with him at what was that? EuroQuest. in Maryland one year, and I learned Cuba Libre from him, which may be one of the reasons why I love Cuba Libre. And he was just such a nice guy and very gracious. I taught game design with him. He talked very openly and filled me in about his background and where he was coming from as a designer, and just a super nice guy. So yeah, if you have the opportunity to meet him, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. That's true of most of the designers that I've met. They're just really nice people. So yeah, he's a great guy. I think you'll enjoy meeting him.
Cool. Well, since you cared so much, Geoff, to prompt me on my opinion, I think that I would love to go out to WBC, but it was really harsh.
That was really harsh. I hadn't had a chance to get to you yet, Iowa. So I don't know.
Well, you see what Geoff thinks. We got Andy, and then me, and then Joe. You're just sorry. You're just down there.
Here's the deal. I'm gonna tell Will to set you straight, okay? So, because I'm sure Will's got my back. So
yeah,
because Will was like our gaming buddy at Origins. He was was game for anything. Yeah. So yeah. Man, hey Joe, what about you? Would you consider going to WBC? Do you feel better now?
I'm gonna answer for Joe. No, it has bees.
There are bees there. And apparently, the people who go to WBC don't have my same obsession with bread. So I'm going to stay here in Iowa where I can eat all the bread I want and compare it to everything.
The thing that's keeping Joe away from it is the fact that Time of Crisis was being played everywhere.
That's true. That's true.
I like that game
if you
theory.
If you took the dice and wrapped them in a nice crepe, okay,
with a rib that's almost gnawed off.
It's almost gnawed off. I'm like, what kind of
time of confectionaries? What are we
talking
about?
What kind of sandwich is this he's describing? It's like a bone inside a bun. I'm like, my God, this makes no sense. Anyway, all right.
Yeah. Well, Geoff, you know that this year, I don't remember if I said it to you or not, but I was trying to swing WBC this year, and we had made our plans to go to on a family trip to go down and visit my in-laws, which was a great trip, and my in-laws played lots of board games and really impressed me. But in the future, I'm going to be considering WBC when I make my summer plans, and it really does depend on whether or not you're willing to put me up in your house and give me whatever bread I request. I will not just eat
marble rye, baby. Marble rye.
There, I'll take a marble
white
rye.
Sliced bread.
Pumpernickel.
Well,
with butter.
What was that from Big Bang Theory? It was like pumpernickel comes from pumpernickel, which means fart goblin. What was that? Remember that episode where he's talking to Summer Glau on the train? And he's trying to impress her by talking about pumpernickel bread. That's you, Joe. I can see you
Stop trying to impress Geoff with bread.
Oh, man, pumpernickel comes from the German, which means fart goblin.
Oh my God!
That actually sounds like one of the random facts I just bring up in conversations.
That's in.
So Joe's going to WBC if there's bread. Okay, we've established that. We're good.
Okay.
Bread con.
Mur says Joe will live by bread alone.
Yes, this is true. I'm almost already there, but yeah.
Oh my God! All right. Okay, so anybody have any last kind of thoughts or anything about WBC before we move on to the hype section, and I can actually go to bed because it's almost midnight?
Oh, I had one thought because it was a big score for me because Edward tweeted out about the Pacific Typhoon tournament or whatnot. So he was, it's a war game, trick-taking game. And I'm like, what?
It's a card trick-taking game. And there's huge tournaments for it. It's supposed to be insane.
I know. And I was like, I must have this. So I jumped for, Game Surplus, not dissing Game Surplus. But apparently Edward got their last copy.
Yeah.
So I jumped on the marketplace and there were no copies in America. I checked the next day and there was one copy in America at MSRP. So I snagged it. So that's sitting in my closet, and I'm going to make Joe play.
I tell you, man, it's been sitting for years on the WBC GMT table. You know, GMT has a huge presence at the WBC naturally, and it's been sitting on their table for like $15, you know, like discounted for like years. Like you can always see it there. And so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if GMT has some copies as well, because they had some at the WBC this year. And I know Carmen sold out of the copies that he had at Game Surplus. So he might have some more coming. I think Carmen's still listening. I don't know if he's got some more coming from
GMT.
GMT.
He had a Seinfeld reference for you that you missed.
He did. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The rye. Shut up, you old hag. Carmen says he's got a copy, but he's got it in his
basement. Wow, what is this?
Is
that's
it next
not
to
Game
Fabled
Surplus. That's like a game drought, isn't it?
It's in his bunker.
Yeah.
Hey, don't diss that. We may all need those before this.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true.
Okay, well, now it's time.
Now we're going back to
Now it's
politics.
it's time to get into the next section before we go back to politics and religion with Geof
Covered in
Gambill.
dust. Stop reading the comments. Let's go on to hype. Hype.
All right. Hype. All right, who's gonna hype something first?
Well, Geof,
Got it.
you're the one who's got the big hype coming. Why don't you hit us hard with the 7th of 7 sons from seven sisters?
Are you talking 7 brides for 7 brothers? What are you referencing?
It's not bread.
I'm gonna blame the bee venom here. I'm really gonna blame it.
All right. All right. 7 Brides for 7 Brothers was an old musical, and yeehaw to that. That's an obscure reference that nobody's gonna get, man.
That's my transitions. If they ever are decent, they're obscure.
7 brothers and 7 seals. What? I don't even. He's
Joe,
like the
Joe,
7.
Joe. Hey,
he's
hang
like,
on. I'm gonna save this. Jeff, I was noticing you were playing a game with just a big picture on the box full of cards. What the heck was that beast?
So I was very happy the other day, right before I went on a quick vacation to get 7th Continent in the mail. And the first thing was I was surprised by the heft of it. You know, there's a geeky part of me that when I pick up a game box and it weighs a lot, it makes me happy. Like I get like a little shudder. You know, it's almost obscene, but not quite. Okay. It's just I get this real like it's like ooh, you know, it's just I get really happy about it, right? And there is just a ton of cards in this box. The production is very, very nice. The art on the cards I really enjoy. There's little miniatures that come, which are the perfect size. People have been saying they're too small, but the fact that you have to put them on the cards, they're actually exactly the right size as far as I'm concerned. They're not like super high detailed or anything, but they're perfect for the game. The 7th Continent is a very interesting game because the story behind it is that the 7th Continent has been discovered. It's this mysterious, you know, place. It's the they call it Terra Incognita, right? So it's the only new land that has been found, and so you're going to be exploring this new land, and you're going to be, you know, kind of investigating things that you find there. You're going to be traveling on this new island, and the reason you're doing this is because of this curse. And so you have been cursed, all right? You were an explorer, and you have been feeling worse and worse, like you're getting ill, you're getting sick, your life force is draining away from you. You realize you've been cursed, and you have to go back to the 7th Continent in order to break this curse. So there's definitely a storytelling aspect of the game here, and you start off on a card. that's just going to sit in the middle of the table. And around that card will be some other kind of face down cards that represent unexplored regions that you might want to check out. And then there are also all of these kind of actions that you can take on the card. You can, look at things, you can examine things, you can travel to different things, move to different cards. There's all these kind of choices. There are resources on the cards, and maybe you can craft something using those resources, like tools and things that might help you. So you start out just kind of in the middle of nowhere is really what it feels like, and then you're going to be sort of exploring, and you're trying to lift this curse, but you don't know how to lift the curse, and you don't really know much about this curse. There's a clue card that you get in the beginning that kind of gives you some information, but you're not even really sure what it all means. But as the game unfolds, you learn more and more. So here's what the best way I can think of to describe it. In Tales of the Arabian Nights, which is a storytelling style of game, you have
I was going to ask you about this.
Yeah.
Where does it fall in the Tales of the Arabian Nights, Gloomhaven spectrum?
And in Gloomhaven, you have a map.
Mm-hmm.
You have a map of the world that you can see. And there are places you can go. And you can have these adventures, okay? Here, you really are exploring. You don't see anything but what you've already explored. You're constantly facing the unknown, which is really, really cool. It's kind of like in Clash of Cultures, where the tiles have their sort of cloud side, and then you flip them over and you see what's there. Well, imagine that exponentially larger. Okay, you like really are
like our Mage Knight kind of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. But even more than Mage Knight. So
oh wow,
what you're doing is in Tales of the Arabian Nights, you're moving point-to-point movement. You're having these encounters. They're sometimes connected to what feels like a storyline. A lot of times they seem random. You don't really, know what's going to kind of pop up, or you make a choice and you think it's a good choice, and then it turns out it was the exact wrong choice. But anyone in their right mind would have picked the choice you did, thinking that would be good. I helped the old lady who is a beggar in the streets, and now I'm cursed. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You would like to think you would help the old lady who is a beggar in the streets, but in Tales of the Arabian Nights, things get weird, right? They can feel very random. This game is like crafted, like the cards that you lay out, the things that you experience, and then depending on the results of the choices you make are going to lead you down a specific storyline, kind of a path. However, within that storyline and path, there's variability, because maybe a certain choice that you make says, okay, go find card 57 and put card 57 out in this position. Well, there might be 357 cards. So you're like, well, which one do I choose? Doesn't matter. Pick one. They're all going to be slightly different. So this way, if I decide to play the same adventure, trying to rid myself of the same curse, there's still variability in the game. Even though I've seen some of the cards before, I will not have seen all of them. And there will be things that will pop up that didn't pop up the first time. Different choices. And so there's a lot of feeling of narrative in this game that is really missing in Tales of the Arabian Nights, right? Gloomhaven has a very strong narrative in the things that happen in between the adventures. During the adventures in Gloomhaven, it's often like, here's where you are, go kill everything. But on the road home, you might have an interesting encounter. Going back to the city, you might have an interesting encounter. And the narrative builds that way. Whereas in this game, the narrative pretty much builds from almost everything that you do. So I'm still kind of marveling. Now, I've only played one session for about 3 hours. And I don't really want to say much about it because I don't want to spoil it for people. But I can definitely tell you that there are things that have happened that I was totally not expecting. There are choices to make that were difficult. As you go through the game, you learn that it's not always best to explore or do everything on a card, because some things will bite you. Other things won't, so you got to really talk about it as a group. And then the real sort of magic of the game is this action deck. And the action deck is made up of all of these cards that are going to very possibly be very beneficial to you. And then there are also character-specific cards, because there's about, I think 6 characters, maybe 7 characters in the game that you could be. And each of those characters has their own character-specific cards that get shuffled into this deck, along with your curse card. And so what happens is every action you take in this game usually involves flipping cards from this deck. But this deck represents kind of like your life. It represents your life force, right? So if you run out of cards, then you're going to shuffle the discard pile. It basically becomes, in effect, a new draw pile. And then if that curse card comes out in that reshuffled pile, you've lost. So you can kind of feel yourself like slowly starting to get into danger in much the same way that you feel in Pandemic, when that deck starts getting smaller and smaller, and you're like, guys, we only got a few more turns here before we're just going to be out of time, right? So you start to feel that pressure kind of building. But there are things that you can do that will put cards back into that deck. And every action you take is going to involve flipping cards from that deck. So you might only be flipping 1 card, or you could be flipping as many as 7 or 9 cards. And these cards are going to determine whether or not you were successful or not, based on the number of these kind of star icons that are on the cards, which represent successes, right? And so some of those cards have 3 star icons on them. That's 3 successes on 1 card. Some of them have none. Some of them have half of a star that will count as a success if you put it together with the appropriate second half of the star. So there's all these kind of interesting decisions just in how many cards do we want to flip. Then the person who flipped the cards then gets to pick up all those cards after you've kind of resolved your action. And then they get to say, okay, I can keep one of these cards, or I can give one of these cards to another player who was there with me participating in the action. And so those cards are going to give you really cool benefits or special abilities, or they might be tools, or they might be items that you can craft and that will help you later. So there's just tons and tons of choices in the game, which is what I really like about it. So my initial impression is very favorable. Played a 4-player game. There was some downtime in a 4-player game, definitely can tell you that. And the game basically states in the rule book that every turn the table decides who's going to be the active player, and then who is going to support that action, who wants to be involved in what goes on. Because if it's a bad thing, well, you're involved in that. If it's a good thing, you're involved in that. So, they want you to have this discussion. We kind of played it where we just went round robin, because we're like, if it ever comes down to it where we think it's really important that Lloyd takes 2 turns in a row, we'll talk about it. But otherwise, let's just take turns being the active player. And it kept people more involved because there was a little bit of a downtime issue. But other than that, my reaction is really, really very favorable so far.
Wow. So what I'm kind of curious about is, like you'd mentioned that what this does is the narrative is continually evolving kind of throughout the gameplay, and that's how it kind of changes Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven definitely has interludes of story that are connecting more of like a central gameplay. It very much does not, on this plate that we're talking about, the, our metaphorical dinner plate, the food does not mix in Gloomhaven. Whereas what you're talking about here, did Jeff just peace out when I made another dinner reference? I think Jeff had his internet go out. Anyway, I was gonna ask him a question, so I guess I'm kind of gonna have to wait on that. Well, I did have one thing I wanted to do, TC, and maybe we could go ahead and do this, and you could maybe edit this in to the front, because I just thought this would have been a good thing to mention maybe earlier. but I wanted to remind people about the contest that we're running right now. That's obviously on the Longview. It's on the Longview Guild, but I'd plug it on here because we're releasing this on both platforms, as far as I know. So, ready for that?
Oh yeah, go for it. I can just do it myself. Just go.
Is it okay? Okay, no, you go ahead and announce it, man. That would be great because you're gonna put everything together, and you're the guy who puts together the announcing thing. So
I could just put it at the beginning, just record something. It's the tattered board one, wasn't it?
Yes, the tattered board. Share a picture of your tattered board.
Yeah, I win. We can talk about another hype game. Why are you hyped about, Andy?
It looks like Geoff may have actually lost his internet. I'm not sure. I need to grab my phone because he might be trying to call me. Nope, not yet. All right, so we will go ahead. Yeah, why don't we have, like you said, TC? Let's have Andy go.
So I'm gonna hype actually an older game, but I got just I think one play under my belt so far. But Joe was cleaning out his collection. I'm like, I want that one. And so I'm hyping Small City by Albin Viard. That's a game I want to dive a little more deeply into. And being the insane completionist I am and knowing it's out of print, by the time I had actually gotten the copy from Joe, even though he lives close, I had all the expansions for the game too. So
wow. I did not unload this game to Andy. I merely found the right person to make sure that this game will always be playable for me.
That's probably fairly accurate. But anyway, I've been really liking Tramways by Albin Viard, and I've been told by a lot of people that either Tramways or Small Cities his best, just depending on the person and what they said. But anyway, I am looking forward to playing this game more because it's a little more tile laying. I haven't done a lot of games like that where it's a little more puzzly. And it looks like it does that very well, and it's not a feast for Odin.
Nice.
Wow, I think Carmen might love you for that, because Carmen was he said that he couldn't believe that for my Spiel of Dreams I said
don't get into that. You left too many games out. I love the games you picked, but
Tramways. Well, he said that you put Tramways up and said this is a really great game. Here's all the reasons why, and it just barely missed. And he said that like was too much for him.
I can agree. I think I turned it off at that point.
Oh.
Man.
I didn't turn
Tough
it off.
room.
I was a little red, but I didn't turn it off.
You turned it off after PAX Ren. That was the first one, Andy. You never made it past that. After I said this one didn't win, PAX Renaissance was nominated but did not make it. So yeah, I guess I've like spoiled that video for the most part. Anyway, you should watch it. You should watch the Sound Coefficient video reviews. Anyway, those are on YouTube. Andy, I'm very excited to try Small City. Geoff, have you any experience with the Albin Viard game Small City?
I own Small City, and I have yet to play it, which I'm very ashamed of. I took it to the WBC this year, and I just could not seem to get it to the table. There was always another request. There was something else that people wanted to play. I did have a chance to try Town Center, which is the sort of interesting kind of cube stacking one. That one made my brain hurt.
I like that one, yeah.
But Tramways, I really, really enjoy Tramways. I like that game quite a bit. So my hope is that Small City is going to be something that I'm really going to latch onto. So I'm going to be eager to hear what you have to say about it, Andy, because it's a game that I definitely want to try out and explore.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, TC, why don't you tell us about the game that took you too long to come up with?
Yeah. So Fantasy Flight is killing it at Gen Con this year. They have so many last-minute announcements. It's just insane. And on Friday, they announced Twilight Imperium 4th Edition. And I am so stoked for this game. We did our StarCraft episode, and you're saying, that was the big box you got was the StarCraft one.
Yeah,
for me, it was Twilight Imperium. And instead of buying StarCraft or Rune Wars, any of those, I bought both expansions to Twilight Imperium. And this is the game I really cut my teeth on. I mean, this probably was one of the biggest factors that led me down the Wargamer path, because I just picked this game up because I said, like, God, what did it say on the box? It was something insane like Pax, Magnifica, Gloriosum. I'm like, yeah, this thing's coming home with me, man. There's no way this game is not coming home with me. Just reading this thing. And what I'm seeing from the changes they're making to 4th edition looks really promising. It looks like a lot of the expansions from the 2 expansions are going to be in it. They're going to change up the trade, which is going to be really good. The politics, there's going to be 2 politics phases instead of 1. So one person just can't just be like, you know what, I've got 56 votes. It's all going to happen whether you like it or not. So you got to figure out which one you want to happen. The technology, Andy, if you had ever played Twilight Imperium, you would say this needs to be streamlined, and you would not hate that word because it is so true. That technology tree were like itty bitty cards. You just had to just figure out how you're going to chain off to get your War Sun. It was just like this insane puzzle you had to do. And it looks like they've streamlined that, which would be fantastic. It's nice to see another big box. This may be the final coffin-sized box to come out of Fantasy Flight. People are complaining it's $150, but if it comes with content with both expansions, I spent $240 for all of my Twilight Imperium stuff over the years. But I am very, very excited for this one. Every time I play Twilight Imperium, some kind of insane stories come out. The legendary battle for Garboza, the time I was the virus and everyone hated me so much they literally wiped me out of the galaxy, which was fun. It's just I can't. My wife is going to be so upset when she sees where'd the $150 go. And I said, you really need to ask. I pre-ordered this thing. It's on its 20th anniversary hardback rule book. Yeah, it's coming. Sorry, we got to work out the budget. It's November. We've got 8 months. We got some time to make this happen. So it's happening.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they do with it. I don't know that I'm going to invest in it, but I would be thrilled to play your copy or somebody else's copy. Just because I don't have the option to play games that long that often. And so for me, I mean, I still have my 3rd edition. For me to go out and invest in a new one when I don't even really play the 3rd edition enough, I'll probably just stick with the 3rd edition for now, but I'm going to be really curious to see what they do with it.
Yeah, Andy, if you ever want to play a war game, we're going to make this happen. We'll someday, somehow, we'll get a Twilight Imperium going, and you'll play with a group of people, and there'll be take-backs. There'll be some kind of epic disaster that happens, and you'll laugh your butt off for weeks. It's such good fun.
Yeah, that one actually has been on my, want to play someday list for a while, so...
And I want to play with Joe because I want to watch him roll the dice for battle and watch him just crap out and just laugh. Oh, look, those ships look like bees, don't they? Oh, they killed you. Oh.
Now he's all swollen.
Yeah. Oh.
Wow.
The kitty cats didn't make it. Oh.
TC, remember when you get like this about a game, I make a mental note of it. And then in the future, when this is proposed, I'm going to remember this.
Oh, please do.
He's going to remember it
No.
He's going to remember it like an aged piece of bread.
Yeah.
It's so stale
I'll
that
just
it can
pour some
now
bee
be
honey
used.
on it.
It can now be used as a weapon.
Well, speaking of weapons... I was going to, I'm now hyping the 7th Continent just like you, Jeff, which that's part of the game. And this is because during our chat here, Murr, one of our listeners who's been pretty much present on a lot of our recent recordings, just shouted out, he's like, I got a print and play copy. I'll send it to you. You send it to somebody else when you're done with it. I want to hear what you think. And I'm really excited to get this. I had planned to hype London because I was just listening to the long view on London that you recorded with a guy from London. I forget his name, but
London's such a good game. London is great.
it was an exciting episode, and it culminated with a bee sting. I mean, what a better way to climax an episode of The Long View than like running into the back of my house, like ow!
Nice.
So, no,
You're running in to play London.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, Caroline, you wanna play a board game since I'm not going back out there?
That's right. You need to pick up the pieces for me because my fingers all swollen.
You know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna buy your wife a copy of Waggle Dance that she can bring out when you come in with bee sting and stop her to play it.
That's the bee game.
Show me on the board game where the bad bee touched you.
I can show you both places, Jeff. One of them is here. You know where I wish it was, though? I wish it was here. So that way you'd know how I feel about you. All right. Well, anyway, thanks so much to Murph for passing on the love like that. That right there is this community of hobby gamers. I mean, take care of others. And just like Carmen said in our comments, the people that are running events at WBC are people who are passionate, wanting to get more people in, and that I think is pretty much across the board there. Thanks a ton, Mer. Awesome of you to do that, and I look forward to trying out Seventh Continent. Whew, boy, it's the bee sting, man. The bee sting's making the voice crack and everything. Sorry about that.
Joe's
anyway,
entering the puberty.
He is. It's like Peter Brady when it's time for a change.
Oh, poor Joe, man, you're taking a beating tonight.
Oh my God! All right, I gotta go to bed. We gotta wrap this up.
Yeah, did we hype everybody? Are we good now? Yeah, that's it. That was it. Yeah,
I got my TI4.
I feel like somebody got missed. I mean, if Trent was here, he'd have so many dozens of things to hype with Gen Con, but that's just getting me excited for next week's podcast. So anyway, Jeff, it has been real having you back on, and TC, it has been great having you on. I know it's been a shorter time for you though. It's only been like 2 or 3, but Jeff, it's been a while, and it is great to hear your voice again, sir.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun being on with you guys and having a chance to chat with you, and appreciate the opportunity.
The only thing that would make it maybe smoother is if you could stuff a slice of bread in your mouth while you're talking. It might come out.
No.
Bees on you.
No, let's talk about more bee stings, I guess.
Let's talk.
No. What we're going to do is give Joe bread with honey on it.
That's right.
Or
like when you
biscuits
next to a beehive.
have to start calling him Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
Hey Jeff, before you go.
Yeah.
Did you get since I've been like all over the time of crisis thing? You've gotten a game into that, right?
I've gotten three or 4 games of it in.
You've been enjoying it, right?
Yeah, I've been enjoying it.
Right?
I'm still a little worried that there might be a slight disadvantage to the last player. Still trying to figure that out. I tried a strategy that I thought might counter that by going heavy political and trying to sway a lot of regions just by calling a lot of votes. But I don't know. I'm still enjoying it. I'm still enjoying the heck out of it.
Oh yeah, I love that. Oh, you're the emperor. Oh, Pretender Empire, come after me. Come on, you're the emperor of Rome. Yeah, you're a wish-washy guy. You're gonna lose points now. I'm a Pretender Empire. I'm the emperor. I'm pretending to be emperor.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to roleplay.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. It's good to be the king.
Yeah.
So, or you could do like the Monty Python, Centurion, throw him to the floor.
I think I killed that one, maybe.
That's right.
Because every time
Strike him, Centurion, very roughly.
I have a feeling
my favorite thing to do. My favorite thing to do is to get that red 4 card and like just go straight to war him. The guy's like got this big army and he's got like a quester in there and all this stuff. He's like, yeah, that doesn't count. I got these red cards. I'm in there. Too bad.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a fun game. I enjoy it quite a bit, and I like it. I mean, it's definitely an evolution of that sort of deck building with a war game kind of thing. That started, at least in my opinion, as far as I know, with a few acres of snow, and then kind of Hands in the Sea kind of took it up and ran with it. And now we have this one, so it's a fun trend. So I'm enjoying it. So
I'm just curious what you thought about it.
Oh yeah, no, I'm liking it. So, Well, guys, it was great having a chance to hang out with you. I'm going to sign off here, and thanks to everybody out there who was listening. Murr's out there and Carmen's out there, and I was going to thank Bluebug123, but apparently that's already.
You're welcome.
You're
welcome. You're just fantastic. Yes.
Yeah, there's been a lot of great comments shared there, and good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. If it was like a Yellow Jacket or something, then I think Joe would be very, very scared. But Bluebug is okay.
You know what, Jeff?
Bluebug is your friend.
Jeff, I have your personal phone number. You are getting texted pictures. They're going to be pictures, man.
I don't want
both of them. Yep.
Of your swollen body parts.
It's going to get big. Yeah, it's going to get big. And I'm going to scratch it just for you. It's going to be inflamed.
All right, I got to go. Now
I'm to look forward to now.
I'm getting a little queasy now.
He does need to sleep today.
Good talking to you, Jeff. Good to have you on.
Wow. Thanks, guys. All right. It's been a pleasure.
It looks like Carmen's saying he's got a TI4 WBC 2018 table reserved after all of our chats. So, and I hope
I will run it. I will run that table.
I'm going to say, TC, you'll make it if that's the case. And I think next summer, this could very well be in the future. And I hope that it does happen. So, anyway, that's something I have to look forward to, and I hope that everybody out there enjoyed this episode of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. Catch us next week here on The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly.